So how will the no-deal Brexit affect South Africa, UK relations and also our economy? I'm now joined by Azumpileli Langalanga from Tutwa Consulting Group to shed some light into the matter. Azumpileli, thanks a lot for joining us on Newsnight this afternoon. It's quite an interesting deal, but it seems as though Theresa May is just not getting any form of lightheartedness or any form really of a lifeline when it comes to this deal. Any other chances that, in fact, the 29th of March will come and we will see a no deal on the table?
Yeah, it has been a very difficult time for the British since they voted to leave the EU. But I think what will happen now going forward is that so she has been given a lifeline to go back to the EU and try to negotiate, ask for an extension.
I think she wants it until the 30th of June.
Yeah, she wants until the 30th of June, but there is a complication in that there are EU parliamentary elections coming in May. So the British then have to vote in those elections if they are to be given an extension that goes until June. So there is a bit of a complication in that regard, because for them to be still in the EU until June, they have to participate also in these elections.
But then here's the thing, is that the Labour Party was suggesting a customs union, so to say, in terms of the deal that was being put on the table. Theresa May has seen her deal rejected, not once, but twice. Right? So that says something about the nature in which she's playing party politics and the power with which she currently holds. On the other side of it, of course, looking and seeking that extension would mean that the EU member parties as well, I believe that there are about 27 remaining EU nations, right? They would have to agree to the terms and conditions of even that extension in the first place. So at this stage, it almost appears as though if the deal is put forward before the 29th of March, there still has to be that okay from the 27 other remaining EU nations. So now what happens?
I think the extension they will do, I think they will get the extension without...
They will get the extensions and the EU nations will actually agree to this extensions. From what I'm understanding, you've got the Prime Minister of Russia saying that, listen, you need to get your ducks in a row simply because people are getting and nations are getting quite agitated with the postponement and what's happening at in the Commons.
Yes, so I think the extension they will get it, but the EU agreement itself that established the union does not stipulate that they need to have conditions when it comes to the extension. So I think the UK is safer from that side. But they need to, the EU is thinking they should give them actually a longer extension so that they can sort of really put their house in order. Because what is going in the UK, only in the UK now, it causes sort of an policy uncertainty in the whole union. And the rejection of the deal mostly has to do with the border, in the Northern Ireland border. So that is because now currently the EU, Northern Ireland will remain in the EU. Okay. And the Ireland will also leave the EU. And because what will then happen is that, remember there was a war in Ireland where they to partition the country, and now that border will be re-established, and it will cause tensions that were now sort of sorted out when all these countries were in the union. So that is mostly the so-called backstop. That is what is causing the problems now.
Okay, but then now we've got pro-Brexit lawmakers, right, which is in the very same Theresa May conservative parties, which have rejected the withdrawal deal, right? And so on the other side of it, her own conservative party members who are even pro-Brexit are now rejecting some of those deals that are coming into play. And I mean, this is a woman that has survived a vote of no confidence as well, right? So they are just almost as though it's so difficult at this moment to negotiate a proper deal. But unfortunately for this, it doesn't just affect the EU, does it? It doesn't just affect British, does it? It affects the entire globe. And most importantly for us as South Africans, it affects South Africans since it's about second largest exports we see from the Western Cape. And when it comes to trade with South Africa as a nation, we're looking at the 8th largest export. So that says a lot about the impact and the effects it will have on us.
Yes. So currently we trade with the EU through with the UK through the EU. So we have an agreement which includes SACU plus Mozambique, where so what will happen now, what they kind of agreed on last Friday was that this agreement will continue to exist as if Brexit never happened. Even if there was a hard Brexit, it will still be able to
To trade.
To trade with
I believe that they'll still be able to trade for another 2 years.
Yes.
So they'll still be able, I think it was Westgrove that said that they'll still be able to trade within the 2 years so that things can start getting and matters can start being put into place. And that will not affect us for another 2 years. But what happens then after those 2 years?
So the idea is that within the 2 years, we'll then negotiate a proper deal with the UK. So this is a sort of a deal that they have had with a couple of key countries, key trading countries in the world, where they say where there was an agreement with them as through the EU, that agreement will continue until maybe for 2 years after Brexit, so that they can tighten up a better agreement that is more particular to those regions.
What does a no-deal exit look like for the South African market and also for the way in which we trade with the UK at the moment?
I think in the medium term, there will not really be much of a disruption because the SADC EU EPA will then, they call it a rollover agreement. It will just, they'll pretend that there was no Brexit. So that agreement will continue to operate. And
so then that agreement operates for that 2 years that we're speaking about?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, until a proper agreement between the UK and South Africa or the SACU region is agreed on. And normally it will just involve tweaking a bit of what is currently there.
So then in terms of just looking at where we're sitting as the continent, in your opinion, Theresa, before the 29th of March, manages to conjure up a deal that is both welcomed by the Conservatives and the Labour Party, and everybody seems to be singing Kumbaya and goes into this Brexit deal with a proper deal in place, right? In that event, then what happens in terms of the SADC region? And I know that especially when it comes to these kinds of deals, Botswana is one a country that we're looking at being held. We've got Botswana, we've got Mozambique, as we were mentioning there, that are also a part of this. So in the SADC region, what then happens, and what would be the best and the most lucrative deal to negotiate on behalf of the SADC region, so we don't find ourselves missing out and losing out as a result of this exit from the EU?
Yeah, so actually what the good thing about Brexit for us, in the SACU and also in Mozambique or in Africa, is that being part of the EU, there's something called the Common Agricultural Policy, which kind of is a restrictive policy within the EU where they want to protect the industry. The UK does not have a common agricultural policy. So if the UK leaves the EU, our agricultural products will actually have a better market access into the UK. So that is the good thing about Brexit from our side.
Okay, so we've got different access, but also though speaking there that a no deal will see Britain cut tariffs on 87% of imports to zero, right? And that is something that, from what I understand, we're trying to involve in also looking at that exporting cars at 10% duty, meaning that it will literally finish the market when it comes to that, so not necessarily welcome. So what exactly do we mean by that?
So currently we have sort of a quota-free, duty-free, quota-free market access into the EU on some of these products. But because when the UK gets out of the EU, what will happen is that those sectors that they deem to be sensitive, that they will want to protect in their own market, they will be triggered. The tariffs will then be triggered, and then we will have difficulty in accessing the UK market in those particulars.
What are we talking about? Are those sensitive specifically sensitive products? Because right now, I think our biggest export is oranges, grapes, for example, that is coming out significantly from the Western Cape. Yes, we've got issues around cars, but it's a lot of the nectarines, and it's a lot of the food-related items as well. So the normal products that are coming out, mandarins, for example. So besides that, will that then be, and what we're exporting from the Western Cape, first of all, and from Greater South Africa be in effect, and do we deem that as sensitive?
So we export mostly agricultural products from the Western Cape. Normally, these will enjoy better market access because the UK does not protect their farmers the way the EU protects them. Yes, because, like I say, this thing called the Common Agricultural Policy is something that has been a sticking point for a very long time between the UK and the EU and other trading partners, because the EU farmers, they are quite they're very protected because they have a strong lobby within the political system. And the UK normally doesn't have a history of protecting their farmers in the same way that they were being protected in the Common Agricultural Policy. And also this is an issue that will, I think with time, within these 2 years, maybe the UK farmers will then put pressure on the UK government to protect them better. And I think that is where we might have a lot of negotiations between SACU the UK.
It's definitely a story to stay closely there, Zupelele, and also looking at how is it that South Africans find themselves in a great footing so that they do not find themselves losing out on a deal that is not going to just affect the EU, is not just going to affect the UK, but really looking particularly at the SADC region, and South Africa obviously coming into question there. But thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight this afternoon and shedding some light in terms of exactly what we can anticipate ahead of this Brexit negotiations. The 29th of March is not yet there, so as Zupelele Langalanga, who's just giving us insights regarding that exit. Well, still